What's going on, gamers? So here we have, and I seen this on Twitter because I was doing my videos before. Apparently, a big thing going all over the place, and some stuff being said too. Where I'm like, really? I think we might get to that later on. Dreamcast guy stuff. We'll see though. Yeah, I've seen some of that. Yeah, apparently the PS6 it has a dockable handheld leak. So what they're trying to do the switch route now again doesn't surprise me. Sony's either copying Nintendo or they're copying Microsoft. So this is kind of funny to me that I kind of see this happening and people just blowing up. And I've seen some funny comments like it's going to destroy the ROG Ally X. See this right here crushes the Xbox Ally X and destroys the Switch. When did Sony ever beat Nintendo in the handheld world when they had a more powerful handheld? I didn't know that that's. Yeah, anyways, you really think. Guys, you really think Sony's you just listen to some of these people, the prices they say this handheld's going to be. Like, do you really think it's going to be that price and crush the Ally X's $900?
Very comprehensive, by the way. So comprehensive that I have been able to estimate the rough cost to make the console and therefore what I believe the final.
I think this guy likes PlayStation. This is me though. I don't watch him a lot. I've heard things about him, so I don't like to like jump the gun like that. But I'm just kind of going on my gut. It seems like he's a PlayStation guy. I mean, if you're a PlayStation guy, you're a PlayStation guy. But I know the Crush Xbox Ally X. It's like, but do we have this confirmed with the like? This is not even official. So that's kind of how I kind of feel like that's kind of like a boom, because 200K, 28,000 views. Oh yeah, man, that's a big thing for the ponies.
MSRP will be, final performance estimates, and like you already saw at the beginning of this video, renders of the APU itself based on the exact die size and specs that I am aware of. But let's start with that APU that will power the handheld before we get to more information. So here you go. Here is a render of AMD Canis, the APU in the PlayStation 6 handheld, and it comes with 4 Zen 6C cores in a single CCX. But then
$400 my ass. No way, not with that.
then there's also 2 more low-power Zen 6 cores that are specifically, from what I saw in documentation, for running the operating system and keeping all non-gaming tasks away from the main gaming cores. Now,
$600
this 4-core gaming
or
CCX
something.
will power a 16 compute unit RDNA 5 integrated GPU. And if that doesn't sound that strong, please remember that RDNA 4 is 40% faster per compute unit than RDNA 3, which is already faster per compute.
No, the funny thing is too, like that's a pretty crushing handheld. It's gonna be interesting. I don't see that thing. People saying Sony may be doing 3, 4, and I seen some post on Twitter yesterday. I'm like, you insane if you think in this market that Sony's gonna release a handheld that's gonna be more powerful than Nintendo and be cheaper. Why do we even do this? Like, I don't understand how that's not common sense. You know what I mean? But
unit than RDNA 2, and then RDNA 5, which is what this uses, is another up to 10% faster per compute unit than RDNA 4. So we are talking about compute units in the PlayStation 6 consoles that will be roughly 60% faster per compute unit compared to the PS5 before we even start talking about things like clock.
my problem with that though more is that you told me about that this generation when I was coming from PS4 to Xbox One. But when did we ever get a fully optimized game that wasn't broken with the, full Unreal Engine 5 like it was Unreal Engine 4? You know what I mean? Where's that at this gen? I mean, too much of that. We've talked about this before. You guys know what I mean about this broken generation and jacking the price up too and release unreleased stuff. It just canceled everything. It's just all like, really? Greatness too, but a lot of just garbage. And then things are reverse Uno, right? More prices up than ever, and we're still talking about specs. But these specs now were fine. This generation could have been fine. They just didn't optimize everything. They took those AI shortcuts, and then they're trying to get you to look at that already next. But yeah, you gave me a broken, unfinished generation. Nothing against these specs, but what I'm saying is that what's the point if you guys are not getting what matters, in place, in line, in order? That type of stuff needs to happen. So it's like, okay, we're fully optimizing these specs and using it. Not saying you need to get this like NVIDIA. Oh, you did this shortcut on NVIDIA, so now you need a 5090 to run it at this one. It's like, if you optimize it, I probably would have needed a 4070 maxed out. You know what I mean? But no, they're not doing that. Just saying, man.
clock speed, bandwidth, or any other special sauce that Mark Cerny is working on. Or before we consider that with native FSR4 support, they're probably going to perform about twice as well as an RDNA 2 compute unit if the game is optimized for AMD Canis or AMD Orion, Orion being the one in the non-handheld.
But I seriously feel like that's not going to be much of a thing next gen. Definitely now with FSR4 coming to consoles and them realizing that, because Sony usually optimizes their games, right? Microsoft usually optimizes their games. There's just certain other things that have problems. And like I said, what is the biggest cancer this generation to me when we talk about optimizing? Unreal Engine 5.
Console. Although when it comes to the
And
performance
AI.
of RDNA 5, before I move on to other specs in this APU, I want to be clear about something. Now, while I don't feel comfortable showing more than this part of an RDNA 5 document that I have, because I think if I show more, it can make life very hard for one of my sources at AMD, I wanted to at least show this snippet to emphasize that RDNA 5 is better than RDNA 4. It's no
Yeah.
slouch, but it is a modest per compute unit IPC uplift. And I say that because I need to make sure that everyone knows they should be.
You remember that video I did for you guys where I was telling you about it's not about the rasterization improvement because it's just going to be like the hard staring again. You're not going to notice the rasterization jump. And I was saying, why would Sony focus too much on rasterization when it should be ray tracing, right? Path tracing, global illumination, those type of things that could have massive jumps and advantages. Like the one dude said, man, it'll take 2 decades to even get ray tracing even somewhat mastered. That's how complicated the light is in development. It's like it'll take them 20 more years because there's so much you can do with it, so much you can add in. So that to me is more important than rasterization because everybody knows the the return is just too low now. You know what I mean? The diminishing returns, it's happening now, big time. Now everything is looking so good. So how do you complicate it? Not rasterization. It's still going to help, but you know what I mean. No, these are the methods and shadows and all that that they're adding in.
Ignoring wild claims out there about like doubling CUs per CU in RDNA 5 or whatever. There are always bogus rumors that come out that overhype architectures, and I want to get ahead of it this time. I say this specifically to address incorrect 96 compute unit RDNA 5 rumors I see floating around right now. I really think that some people out there, let's say, need to be more self-aware of how their speculation is being spread as fact, and they need to stop because I believe they are digging a hole deeper right now, and they could end up like someone like Greymon55, who was so humiliated by his overhyping that he had to delete his Twitter account. And so, yeah, look, everybody watching this, you've been warned. There are unreliable websites right now digging the same hole they did with RDNA 3, where they told you that it would be miraculously 2.5 times the performance of RDNA 2. Well, I was telling you the top card would be at least over 50%, a much more modest but reasonable performance uplift. I see the same thing going on again with RDNA 5. This always seems to happen. I just want to make sure you all have the correct information. So if you're interested in the more nerdy, technical RDNA 5 PC stuff, go to the video on screen right here and ignore the FUD. But anyways, let us continue. So the PlayStation 6 handheld, in addition to those compute units and CPU cores, will come with a 192-bit bus. Those who have been paying attention will note that this is a 50% increase from the earlier planned 128-bit bus. And again, this will be manufactured on a around 135 millimeter squared TSMC 3nm node. And I guess a final note here is that the render on screen is based on the real specs and is the exact size of the real Canis, but the blocks on it may be in different locations or sizes than the final design.
This does okay from what I'm seeing. This does seem very plausible. I'm not going to take it 100%, but I think this is the closest thing we're going to get at the moment. If we want to compare it to the next Xbox from what we got from that, or just in general, what are they going to be doing in general? Just new hardware. You know, that's we're just looking at it. Labels aside, what type of hardware is coming out over there?
Well, both because maybe they could move things around in the final design, but also to make it easier to show you it as a render. This is a render for depicting the specs of Canis based on the real information about it, but it is not something you should do for like one-to-one annotated silicon analysis. All right, so those are the rough specs. Now let's get into What will this thing likely cost? And oh boy, is this something a lot of you have been arguing about in the comment section of video after video. And because of that, I actually spent a lot of time preparing the chart that you can now see on screen to demonstrate what I mean when I've been saying for about a month now that at least the PlayStation 6S and even maybe the PlayStation 6 console too could be closer to the PS5 in pricing than I think a lot of people
Does this guy really believe this? I'm sorry, but this is way too cheap, dude.
easily believe. Now, if you want details about where I got these numbers, you can of course see some of
Okay, you know what? No. Okay. I see what he's trying to say. Okay, so he's saying the handheld after, okay, 549. The Canis is 400. Is he trying? $800 with PSVR 2? No. Even then, yeah, no. Yeah, this guy, no. Yeah, this no. PS6, I could see it being 600. That I could say okay. The handheld being $373. What the hell is wrong with him?
the notes below the bomb estimate, but what you need to know is that I got them from publicly available data and websites dedicated to like calculating silicon costs, and even some bomb sheets I have of some gaming products right now, some of which I have leaked, and I put all of those together to get what you're seeing. Now look, it's not perfect, but I was consistent in how I estimated the cost of each console, to the point that I made sure it also lined up using the same rules for estimating PS5 pricing, which we know was sold at a slight loss at launch. And so I think, at least relatively speaking, although it's not perfect, it's pretty good at estimating what's possible here. And also note that I did this professionally as an engineering account manager before I started doing YouTube full time. So if I might toot my own horn, I'm good at this. I was dead on last gen too, by the way, estimating the price of the PS5 that everyone said would cost more. But anyways, as you can see, Canis uses, yes, a
Okay.
more expensive
We're gonna
node than the
hold him to
PS5
that.
did, but 3 nanometer has immaculately good yields. In fact, the yields are so good, or expected to be so good on 3 nanometer for PlayStation Canis, that they don't plan
Because when I reacted to Alex's content, I remember we were talking about the 600, 800 range. Now, as far as like a handheld, if you're saying it's going to be as powerful as a PS5, and you're not dropping the price, you're going to put the handheld weaker than that and it can go on the go, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just saying.
to disable any part of the die. Telling you right now, well, PlayStation Orion will disable some parts of the die for consistent yields. They don't believe they need to disable anything for Canis.
But where's it crushing the Xbox? Let's skip ahead a little bit here. Let's see. Do we have that? PS6 performance and full specs.
I've
Okay,
gone
here we
over
go.
the rough specs, the likely cost, and how much RAM it's going to have. Let me now re-summarize the specs, and this will include new information I haven't yet said in the video as well. So putting this on screen here, PlayStation Canis PS6 handheld, this time full specs leak. Again, some of this will be a repeat, but there's new stuff here. So the monolithic 135mm square die will be manufactured on TSMC 3 nanometer, 4 Zen 6C, 2 Zen 6 low power, so that's 6 cores total, and it has 4 megabytes.
You know what's so funny about this? Because I was telling people that there was no 2026. No, it's going to be late 2027 or 2028. Remember those Activision documents where they were saying the console generations usually last that long and that it's going to be that long for the next PlayStation or whatever? And I always stuck with that. And that's pretty obvious. They're going to do backwards compatibility, but no mention of PS3. Yeah, there we go with that again. I don't know. And then we see this right here. This is where we get handheld mode and docked mode. Why are you imitating Nintendo? Boy, I tell you, always ripping off of them. It's crazy. Docked and handheld. Sony's trying to be like Nintendo. That is funny. Well, there's nothing wrong with learning from the best, but that's pretty funny. But dude, they can't be sitting there trying to play that hypocritical game though when we see things like this. How many times, guys, have I you know, proven that and shown people? When I bring it up, you see what I mean? Yeah,
Bytes of
because
L3 for the Zen 6C CCX. So there you go. Now we know that that's how many megabytes per Zen 6C cores there will be. Remember that Zen 6C is going to be a lot faster still than Zen 2, I think, and the C cores with AMD have the same IPC as the non-C cores. What I would take this to mean is it's probably going to be clocked between 4 and like 5.5 gigahertz. I'm not really sure how high the C cores will go, but it won't be 7 gigahertz because this won't be on 2 nanometer and it won't be the
That's
non-C. But it
plenty.
will still be a quite large clock speed increase, I believe, over the PlayStation 6 with like 80% more IPC than what the PS5.
Okay, so as you see, manufacturing planned for mid 2027. Docs clearly said that the LP cores offer OS and free up 20% performance for the CPU. I expect Sony to choose 24 gigabytes or 36 gigabytes because the devs tell me it's necessary to run the next-gen games. Rasterization performance is estimated to be 0.55 to 0.75 in docked mode. Ray tracing performance is estimated to be 1.3 to 2.6 times the PS5 in dock mode. Once you factor in FSR support for PS6 Canis, the real-world performance should exceed PS5 in games patched for Canis, but perform slightly lower in non-patched, non-ray tracing games. Yeah, they're talking about that handheld, and this is where the Xbox is mentioned.
Cores have. And so I still think
And
when
you
you look
factor
at
in
this,
that, it's gonna
these cores
Canis
are
should
more
comfortably
than enough
outperform the
to run
Xbox.
PS5 games better than even
Right down there, I'll zoom in for you guys again. Comfortably, get off the screen. They're making this as a statement. Comfortably outperform the Xbox Ally X. There it is right there, y'all. I wonder how all this interesting stuff is written up. This is actually funny, full specs leak. Just like that. So we're going to find out a lot here, right? Pony, sit down still. Let me know what you guys think about this. It gets very interesting. I just don't understand the pricing of saying that you're going to outperform that, but thinking you're going to be $400-500 cheaper. Insane. Later, y'all. Let me know what y'all think.